The desperate call. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the command rail of the Tellurian flagship Eternal Vigilance as another barrage of particle fire slammed into their failing shields. The bridge's emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the faces of her crew, faces once filled with hope, now etched with grim resignation. "Shield integrity at 17%, Captain," reported her first officer, Talon Kerr, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the flashing red alerts. "2 more hits and we'll be exposed." Ilara nodded, feeling the weight of command bearing down like a physical force. The Tellurian Alliance, once a proud federation of 7 spacefaring species spanning 32 systems, was being methodically dismantled by the Krev Dominion. World by world, system by system, the Krev had advanced without mercy or hesitation. "Status of the evacuation fleet?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "The civilian ships are entering warp now, Captain," Talon replied. "But the Krev have deployed interdiction fields. Only 60% of the evacuees will make it to the jump point before they're blocked." 60%. 5 million souls saved. 3 million potentially lost. Ilara closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself one breath to acknowledge the magnitude of that loss before returning to the moment. And the planetary defense shield. Communications officer Nirival turned from her station, her delicate tendrils drooping in exhaustion. "Holding at minimal capacity, Captain. But Sentinel City has fallen. The Central Council is gone." A stunned silence fell across the bridge. The Central Council, the 7 representatives of the Alliance's founding species, eliminated in one strike. Centuries of peaceful cooperation and technological advancement, wiped away by the Krev's ruthless determination to assimilate or destroy all in their path. "They're hailing us again," Neri added quietly. Ilara straightened her uniform. On screen, the main view screen flickered to life, revealing the now familiar visage of Warlord Drazvek of the Krev Dominion. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the cold lights of his command center, mandibles clicking in what Ilara had come to recognize as their version of amusement. "Captain Voss," the Warlord's translator rendered his clicking speech into the common galactic language. "Your resistance continues to impress, if only for its futility. Your council is dead. Your homeworlds burn. Your fleet is reduced to a handful of damaged vessels. Surrender now, and the Dominion will preserve a portion of your population for integration." Integration, a polite term for neural reconfiguration and forced labor. Death would be kinder. "The Tellurian Alliance does not surrender to genocide, Warlord," Ilara replied, proud that her voice did not waver. "We stand for cooperation and mutual advancement. Even now, we offer peaceful coexistence." The Warlord's mandibles clacked rapidly. Laughter. "Peace is inefficient, Captain. Evolution demands the strong consume the weak. You have one standard rotation to surrender, or we will destroy your remaining ships and take what we want from the ashes." The transmission cut, leaving the bridge in silence once more. "Options?" Ilara asked, turning to her senior staff. Chief Tactician Varix, a member of the aquatic Brellian species, rose from his moisture-filled station. "We have none, Captain. Our conventional weapons barely penetrate their shields. Our allies in the Galactic Concord have refused intervention, claiming this is a regional conflict. We're alone." Ilara paced the bridge, mind racing. The Krev had appeared 3 standard years ago, emerging from unexplored space with technology that outmatched anything in known space. Their ships were organic technological hybrids, self-healing and adaptive. Their weapons bypassed conventional shielding as if it were mist, and their purpose seemed to be expansion for its own sake, consuming resources and sentient beings alike. "There is one possibility," said Talon hesitantly. All eyes turned to the first officer. "The humans," he said simply. A wave of murmurs swept across the bridge. Some officers exchanged worried glances, others looked confused. "The humans have isolated themselves for nearly 30 standard years," Chief Diplomat Elias Orel objected. They've rebuffed all diplomatic overtures since the Proxima incident. They won't help us. They might, countered Verix. The Krev are approaching human space. If the Alliance falls, they'll eventually face the same threat. Ilara considered this. Humanity was a paradox in galactic society, a relatively young species that had burst onto the interstellar scene with startling speed and ingenuity. Their ships were unorthodox but effective, their tactics unpredictable, their diplomacy alternating between surprising wisdom and alarming aggression. After the Proxima incident, a misunderstanding that had escalated into a brief but devastating conflict, humanity had withdrawn behind their borders, engaging in only minimal trade and refusing all military alliances. Some said they were building up their forces. Others believed they had simply lost interest in a galaxy that had misunderstood them. The Accord of Mutual Defense, Ilara said suddenly. It was never formally dissolved. Elia looked up sharply. Captain, that agreement is nearly 50 years old. It predates even the Proxima incident. The humans haven't acknowledged it in decades. But they never renounced it either, Ilara insisted. And humans place great value on keeping their word. She turned to her communications officer. Neri, prepare a Priority 1 distress call on all frequencies. Include the Accord recognition codes. Captain, Talon interjected, even if they respond, human forces couldn't arrive for days. We have hours at most. Ilara met his gaze steadily. Then we'll buy the time we need. Verix, what's our most defensible position in this system? The tactician consulted his displays. The Caloran Nebula. The radiation would interfere with Krev targeting systems, and the dense matter could provide some cover. Set course for the nebula, Ilara ordered, and prepare all remaining weapons. If we're making our last stand, let's make it count. As the Eternal Vigilance limped toward the nebula, Ilara retreated to her ready room. The small chamber, usually her sanctuary, felt like a tomb now. On her desk sat a small hologram, her bondmate Tarian and their child Elo, waiting on a colony world that had fallen 3 months ago. She hadn't heard from them since. The ship shuddered as another volley found its mark. Damage reports flooded her terminal. They wouldn't last long, even in the nebula. Captain. Neri's voice came through the comm. The distress signal is ready. Ilara took a deep breath. Send it. And Neri, add a personal message. Recording, Captain. This is Captain Ilara Voss of the Tellurian Alliance. To any human forces receiving this transmission, we stand on the brink of extinction. The Krev Dominion has destroyed our worlds and slaughtered billions. They will not stop with us. We invoke the Accord of Mutual Defense, not just as a legal obligation, but as a plea from one sentient species to another. Help us, please. She paused, then added, the galaxy once feared your potential for violence. Now we pray that you remember how to unleash it. The message sent, Ilara returned to the bridge. The nebula loomed ahead, a swirling mass of purple and blue gases illuminated by the light of dying stars. Any response to our distress call? She asked, already knowing the answer. None, Captain, Neri replied softly. But it's broadcasting on repeat across all frequencies. Ilara nodded. Then we proceed as planned. Tactical, deploy all remaining drones as a defensive perimeter. Operations, divert all non-essential power to shields and weapons. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, the product of months of desperate battles and retreats. They had become experts in fighting losing battles, in snatching small victories from the jaws of defeat. But this time, there would be no escape, no fallback position. Hours passed. The Tellurian ships, now reduced to the flagship and 3 escorts, positioned themselves within the nebula. The radiation played havoc with their sensors, but also masked their exact location from the Krev. Krev battle group approaching, Verix announced. I count 17 capital ships and numerous support vessels. So many, just to finish off their pitiful remaining force. The Krev were nothing if not thorough. "They're hailing us again," said Neri. "Ignore it," Ilara replied. "We've heard everything they have to say." The first volley from the Krev ships illuminated the nebula like lightning in a storm cloud. The Tellurian vessels returned fire, their weapons seeming feeble against the massive Krev warships. One escort ship erupted in flames almost immediately, torn apart by concentrated fire. The second managed to disable a Krev frigate before succumbing to a barrage of biological torpedoes that ate through its hull like acid. On the Eternal Vigilance, systems failed one by one. Fires broke out on the lower decks. The medical bay reported mounting casualties. "Shield generators failing," reported the engineering officer. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Ilara stood in the center of her bridge, watching as her ship, her home for the past 12 years, died around her. "Continue firing. Target their lead vessel." A massive impact threw her to the deck. When she rose, half the bridge stations were dark, their operators unmoving. "Captain," Talon called out, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. "Sensors are detecting something unusual. Multiple spatial distortions forming at the edge of the system." Ilara felt a flicker of hope, quickly suppressed. "The Krev reinforcements." "No," Talon replied, his voice filled with wonder. "The signatures don't match Krev technology. I don't recognize them." The tactical display flickered, then showed new contacts appearing. First a handful, then dozens, then hundreds. "We're being hailed," said Neri, somehow still at her post despite the chaos. It's on a human frequency." Ilara's heart leaped. On screen, through the static and interference, a human face appeared, stern, weathered, with eyes that seemed to have witnessed countless battles. Gray-streaked hair was pulled back severely from a face lined with both age and authority. "This is Admiral Helena Blackwood of the Earth Defense Force Terminus Fleet," the human announced, her voice clear and commanding. "We received your distress call, Captain Voss. The Accord stands. Hold your position. The cavalry has arrived." As the transmission ended, the tactical display updated again, showing the true scale of the human arrival. It wasn't a relief force or an expeditionary fleet. It was an armada. Hundreds of ships of various sizes and configurations, arranged in formations unlike anything in standard tactical doctrine. At their center loomed vessels of such magnitude that they dwarfed even the largest Krev warships. For the first time in months, Ilara felt something other than despair. "The humans," whispered Varix in awe. "They actually came." "Yes," Ilara replied, a grim smile forming on her lips. "And may the stars help the Krev now." The Forgotten Legends. Admiral Helena Blackwood stood on the command deck of the EDF Retribution, the flagship of humanity's Terminus fleet. Around her, the crew worked with practiced precision, their movements economical and focused. The massive holographic display dominating the center of the bridge showed the tactical situation in vivid detail. The Krev warships, the battered Tellurian vessels taking refuge in the nebula, and the steadily advancing human armada. "Status report," Helena demanded, her voice carrying the weight of 4 decades of command. "All ships in position, Admiral," replied Commander Jackson, her executive officer. "Strike groups Alpha through Echo are deployed in hammerhead formation. Carrier groups are launching fighter screens. The Thunderchild and Leviathan are moving to flanking positions." Helena nodded, studying the Krev battle group. Their biomechanical ships were impressive, predatory, even beautiful in their alien way. But they had never faced humanity in battle. They had no idea what was coming. "The Krev are adjusting their formation," Tactical Officer Lieutenant Rice announced. "They're breaking off their attack on the Tellurians and turning to face us." As expected, Helena said, "Open a channel to the Krev command ship." The main view screen shifted to show the chitinous face of the Krev warlord, his mandibles clicking in what might have been surprise or annoyance. "This is Admiral Helena Blackwood of the Earth Defense Force. You are engaging allies protected under the Accord of Mutual Defense. Withdraw your forces from this system immediately, or face the consequences. The Krev warlord's translator processed his clicks and hisses. Humans, your reputation precedes you, though I had begun to believe it exaggerated. Your isolation suggested cowardice, rather than the ferocity of legend. Helena's expression remained impassive. We prefer peace, warlord, but we prepare for war. Your answer? The Dominion does not retreat, the warlord replied. If you value these weaklings so highly, then you may share their fate. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. The transmission cut abruptly. Charming fellow, Commander Jackson remarked dryly. Helena allowed herself a thin smile. Indeed. All ships, battle stations, initiate Operation Thunderbolt. Across the human fleet, klaxons sounded as crews rushed to their combat positions. Fighter squadrons launched from carrier bays, forming protective screens around the larger vessels. Weapon systems powered up, filling space with electromagnetic signatures that would have overwhelmed conventional sensors. Aboard the Tellurian flagship, Captain Ilara Voss watched in astonishment as the humans deployed. Unlike the methodical, textbook formations used by most galactic powers, the human ships moved in what seemed like organized chaos. Small, agile vessels darting forward, while massive capital ships held formation behind them. "What are they doing?" asked Hallen, his voice betraying his confusion. "Their lighter ships are completely exposed." Varix, the tactician, shook his head in wonder. "It's an ancient human tactic called baiting. They're drawing the Krev into committing to an attack." The Krev took the bait. Their warships surged forward, organic weapons pods extending like the stingers of venomous insects. Energy beams lanced out, seeking the seemingly vulnerable human vessels. But the humans were ready. The smaller ships executed impossibly tight maneuvers, evading the Krev fire while leading them deeper into the human formation. Then, as if on some unheard signal, the human fleet transformed. Ships that had appeared to be retreating suddenly reversed course. Vessels that seemed to be simple transports dropped holographic camouflage, revealing heavy weapon platforms. And the massive capital ships at the rear opened fire with weapons that defied conventional understanding of physics. "By the Seven Moons," whispered Neri as the tactical display updated. "What are they firing?" The answer came in devastating fashion. Beams of coherent energy, not the usual plasma or particle weapons, but something else, sliced through Krev shields as if they weren't there. Missiles with changing trajectories curved around defensive fire to impact precisely on vulnerable points. And strangest of all, some Krev ships simply stopped, their systems shutting down as if someone had flipped a switch. "Quantum disruptors," said a new voice. A human officer had appeared on their view screen, a woman with dark skin and close-cropped hair, wearing the insignia of a tactical liaison. "Admiral Blackwood thought you might appreciate an explanation of what you're seeing. I'm Lieutenant Commander Chen, here to coordinate between our forces. Those weapons," Ilara began, "are classified," Chen replied with a slight smile. "Let's just say we've been busy during our isolation. The Krev's adaptive shields work by analyzing incoming energy signatures and modulating to counter them. Our weapons change signatures faster than their systems can adapt." On the tactical display, the battle continued to unfold. 3 Krev destroyers had already been reduced to drifting hulks. A 4th erupted in a spectacular explosion as something penetrated its core. The remaining Krev vessels were attempting to regroup, their earlier confidence visibly shaken. "The Krev flagship is launching boarding pods," reported Varix, pointing to a new set of contacts on the display. "They're targeting your smaller vessels." Chen's smile widened. They really shouldn't do that. As they watched, the boarding pods attached to a human frigate. Standard procedure for most species would be to evacuate the threatened sections and focus on repelling boarders. The humans did neither. Instead, the frigate's engines flared to maximum, accelerating directly toward the nearest Krev cruiser. "They're going to ram it," Talon exclaimed. "Not quite," Chen corrected. "Watch." Moments before impact, the frigate executed a perfect roll, presenting its underside and the attached Krev boarding pods to the cruiser. The pods, still actively cutting through the frigate's hull, suddenly found themselves pressed against their own mothership. Before the Krev could react, the frigate pulled away, leaving the confused boarders embedded in their own vessel's hull. The human bridge officer couldn't contain a chuckle at the Tellurians' dumbfounded expressions. "Old trick. We call it the return to sender maneuver." As the battle progressed, it became increasingly clear that the Krev were outmatched. Despite their technological advantages over most species, they found themselves unable to counter the sheer versatility and unpredictability of human tactics. "Why didn't you intervene earlier?" Ilara asked Chen, the question that had been burning in her mind. "We've been fighting the Krev for years. Billions have died." Chen's expression sobered. "A fair question, Captain. The truth is complex. After the Proxima incident, there was significant political pressure to withdraw from galactic affairs. Many humans felt we'd been misunderstood, our intentions misconstrued. Others believed we needed to focus on internal development before engaging with other species again." She paused, then continued, "But we never stopped watching. When your distress call mentioned the Accord, it gave the interventionists the legal basis they needed. Admiral Blackwood has been advocating for re-engagement for years. On the Retribution, Admiral Blackwood was directing the battle with the calm precision of a conductor leading an orchestra. The Terminus fleet, named for its role as humanity's last line of defense, was performing exactly as designed, executing complex maneuvers with seamless coordination. "The Krev flagship is attempting to withdraw, Admiral," reported Lieutenant Reyes. "They're opening a subspace corridor." Helena's eyes narrowed. "Not today. Signal the Thunderchild and Leviathan. Execute Pattern Omega." Two of the largest human vessels, dreadnoughts that stretched nearly 3 kilometers from bow to stern, moved with surprising grace for their size. As the Krev flagship began to enter the swirling vortex of its escape corridor, the dreadnoughts activated specialized equipment that sent ripples through subspace. The corridor collapsed, leaving the Krev flagship stranded. "Channel to the Krev command," Helena ordered. The warlord appeared again, his earlier arrogance replaced by what might have been fear. "What have you done?" "That was a stable corridor. Subspace interdiction technology," Helena replied calmly. "Another development from our isolation period. Your options are now limited, warlord. Surrender, and your crews will be treated according to galactic conventions. Continue fighting, and we will destroy you utterly." The warlord's mandibles clicked rapidly. "The Dominion does not surrender." "Very well." Helena terminated the transmission and turned to Commander Jackson. "Prepare boarding teams. I want their command structure intact if possible, and their database." "Boarding?" Jackson questioned. "Their biomechanical systems make conventional boarding extremely hazardous." Helena's smile was cold. "Deploy the Pathfinders." Throughout the human fleet, specialized dropships prepared for launch. Within them, soldiers in powered armor checked their equipment, not standard military gear, but highly specialized suits designed specifically for the mission at hand. Captain Marcus Way, commander of the 7th Pathfinder Division, addressed his troops as they prepared to drop. "Intelligence indicates the Krev utilize neural interface systems to control their ships. Our primary objective is to locate and secure these control nodes. Secondary objective is data retrieval from their central cores." A soldier raised her hand. "Sir, what about resistance?" Way's expression was grim behind his visor. "The Krev consider defeat worse than death. Expect heavy resistance, including biological countermeasures. That's why you're all equipped with isolation suits. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out." The drop ships launched, streaking toward the crippled Krev flagship like arrows. Point defense systems fired desperately, managing to destroy 2 of the 20 vessels, but the rest made it through, attaching to the organic metallic hull like parasites. Cutting charges detonated, opening paths into the alien vessel. The Pathfinders poured in, their advanced armor protecting them from the ship's automatic defenses, clouds of microscopic organisms that attempted to break down any foreign matter. The battle inside the Krev flagship was as chaotic as the space engagement had been ordered. The Krev, insectoid warriors standing nearly 2 meters tall, fought with the desperation of a cornered predator. But the Pathfinders, with their powered armor and specialized weaponry, steadily gained ground. Captain Wei, leading from the front as always, was the first to reach the Neural Control Center, a massive chamber filled with pulsating organic technology. Krev operators were physically connected to the systems, their exoskeletons integrated with the ship itself. Control center secured, Wei reported. Data retrieval team, you're up. As the human specialists began the delicate process of extracting information from the Krev systems, Wei received a priority transmission from Admiral Blackwood. Captain, we're detecting unusual energy buildups throughout the Krev vessel. Analysis suggests they're initiating a self-destruct sequence. Wei cursed under his breath. Understood, Admiral. Attempting to locate and disable. But the Krev had been thorough. The self-destruct mechanism was distributed throughout the ship, integrated with its living components. All Pathfinders, priority evacuation, Wei ordered. We have minutes at most. As the human boarding teams raced back to their dropships, tech specialists transmitted what data they had managed to download. It wasn't everything, but it would have to be enough. The last dropship had barely cleared the Krev flagship when the vessel imploded, collapsing inward before it erupting in a spectacular explosion that temporarily blinded sensors. On the Tellurian bridge, Ilara Voss watched as the remaining Krev vessels, now leaderless, attempted to scatter. The human fleet pursued methodically, disabling engines and weapons rather than destroying the ships outright. They're taking prisoners, Talon observed, surprised. Lieutenant Commander Chen nodded. Intelligence gathering is crucial. The more we understand about the Krev, the better we can counter them in future engagements. Future engagements. The phrase implied a commitment that Ilara had hardly dared to hope for. Your people fought well, Captain Voss, Chen continued. Admiral Blackwood requests your presence aboard the Retribution for a strategic conference. We need to discuss what comes next. Next. Such a simple word, yet one that had seemed impossible just hours ago. Ilara looked around her shattered bridge, at the crew who had stood with her through the darkest hours of the Alliance's history. Tell Admiral Blackwood I would be honored, she replied. And please convey our deepest gratitude. Your arrival has given us something we had almost forgotten. What's that? Chen asked. Ilara's smile was tired but genuine. Titans unleashed. The Tellurian refugees huddled in the emergency shelters of New Haven, the last major city on Talos Prime, not yet touched by the Krev bombardment. Their frightened murmurs filled the reinforced bunkers as the ground occasionally shook from distant impacts. Children of various species clung to parents or caretakers, their natural bioluminescence dimmed by fear and stress. The massive view screens that normally displayed calming natural scenes had been repurposed to show the battle unfolding in orbit, a decision made by the interim Tellurian Council to provide transparency, though some questioned the wisdom of broadcasting what many expected to be their final defeat. Instead, the gathered refugees watched in stunned silence as human warships systematically dismantled the Krev fleet that had terrorized them for years. Are they really on our side? Whispered a young Brellian to her parent, her aquatic features wide with wonder as a human cruiser unleashed a barrage that shattered a Krev destroyer. Yes, little one, replied Elder Morin, one of the few surviving council members. The humans have answered our call. But I thought humans were dangerous, said another child, a Viridian whose vine-like appendages trembled slightly. Elder Morin knelt, though the movement pained his aged joints. All power can be dangerous, young one. The humans possess great capacity for violence, yes, but also for compassion. Today, they direct their strength against those who would harm us. On the screen, the battle shifted. With the Krev flagship destroyed and many of their vessels disabled or retreating, the human fleet was repositioning. Smaller craft began descending through the atmosphere. Dropships, fighters, and what appeared to be massive cargo vessels. "They're landing," someone called out, panic edging their voice. "Are they invading too?" "No," said Elder Morin firmly. "They're coming to help." His words proved prophetic. The first human vessels to land near New Haven were medical ships, emblazoned with the universal symbol for aid, a circle with a cross within. As their ramps lowered, human medical personnel emerged, carrying equipment and supplies. Captain Ilara Voss, having transferred from her crippled flagship to a human shuttle, arrived at the central shelter alongside Admiral Helena Blackwood. The contrast between them was striking. Ilara in her tattered Tellurian uniform, Helena resplendent in the midnight blue of Earth's Defense Force. "Citizens of the Tellurian Alliance," Ilara announced, her voice broadcast throughout the shelter network. "As you have seen, our allies from Earth have arrived in force. The Krev assault has been repelled from Talos Prime, and human forces are engaging Krev fleets throughout our territory." A hesitant cheer rose from the refugees, growing stronger as the reality of their unexpected salvation sank in. Admiral Blackwood stepped forward, her weathered face solemn. "People of the Alliance, I am Admiral Helena Blackwood of Earth. We came as soon as we received your distress call. I regret that we did not arrive sooner, but I promise you this: what the Krev have done here will not stand. Earth honors its commitments, even those made generations ago." As she spoke, reports were coming in from across the Tellurian systems. Human forces had appeared not just at Talos Prime, but at every major world still under Krev assault. The Terminus fleet, it seemed, was merely the vanguard of a much larger deployment. Outside the shelters, human landing craft continued to arrive. From some emerged soldiers in powered armor, quickly establishing defensive perimeters. From others came engineers and construction specialists, already beginning to assess and repair critical infrastructure. Most surprising to the Tellurians were the massive prefabricated structures being assembled with astonishing speed: field hospitals, water purification systems, and temporary housing. "We've brought enough supplies to support your population for the immediate future," Admiral Blackwood explained to the hastily reconvened Tellurian Council. "Our intelligence suggests the Krev will regroup and counterattack within days. We intend to be ready." Elder Morin, his ancient eyes studying the human admiral, spoke the question on everyone's mind. "Why now, Admiral? We have sent appeals to Earth for years as the Krev advanced. What changed?" Helena's expression remained professional, but something flickered behind her eyes. "Regret, perhaps. Politics, Elder. After the Proxima incident, there was a strong isolationist movement on Earth. Many believe we should focus on developing our own systems rather than engaging with galactic affairs that often seem to misunderstand our intentions." She straightened slightly. "But we never stopped watching. When Captain Voss invoked the Accord of Mutual Defense, citing not just legal obligation, but appealing to our shared humanity." She glanced at Ilara with respect. "It gave those of us who advocated for intervention the leverage we needed." "And now," asked another council member, "once the Krev are repelled, will Earth withdraw again?" "That," said Helena firmly, "will be for our governments to discuss. But I believe this crisis has demonstrated the folly of isolation. The galaxy is too interconnected. Threats to one species inevitably become threats to all." As the council session continued inside, Captain Marcus Way of the 7th Pathfinder Division was coordinating defensive preparations outside. His soldiers worked alongside Tellurian defense forces, integrating their technologies and tactics. "Your weapon systems are compatible with our power sources," Way explained to Commander Kelvin, the ranking Tellurian military officer. "We can boost your defensive capabilities by at least 300% with some minor modifications." Commander Kelvin, a tall, reed-thin member of the Altorian species, studied the schematics with professional interest. These targeting algorithms are unlike anything I've seen. We nodded. Predictive targeting. Our systems don't just calculate where an enemy is, but where they will be, particularly effective against the Krev, whose ships move in recognizable patterns once you have enough data. Across the city, similar scenes played out as humans and Tellurians worked together, centuries of minimal contact giving way to urgent cooperation. Cultural misunderstandings and language barriers were overcome through necessity and goodwill. Not everyone welcomed the human presence, however. Some Tellurians, particularly those old enough to remember the rumors from the Proxima incident, watched the newcomers with suspicion. "They're just another empire," muttered Counselor Javix as he observed human dropships continuing to land. "They may fight the Krev today, but what will they demand tomorrow? Our resources, our technology, our freedom." "They ask for nothing," Elder Morin replied mildly. "They come honoring an accord that most of us had forgotten existed." "For now," Javix insisted. "But look at them, their weapons, their ships. They've been preparing for war all these years while pretending to seek peace." Elder Morin's gaze was steady. "Perhaps they simply understood the universe better than we did. We chose to believe that all species could be reasoned with, that diplomacy would always prevail. The Krev proved us wrong, at the cost of billions of lives." Before Javix could respond, alarms blared throughout the city. The Krev, it seemed, had regrouped faster than anticipated. In orbit above Talos Prime, sensors detected the emergence of a new Krev battle group, larger than the first, with ships of configurations not previously encountered. "They've committed their reserve fleet," Admiral Blackwood observed from the command center established on the outskirts of New Haven. Around her, human and Tellurian officers monitored displays showing the approaching threat. "Reinforcements are en route from Earth," reported Commander Jackson, "but they won't arrive for another 6 hours." Helena studied the tactical display, assessing their options. Most of the Terminus fleet remained in orbit, though many smaller vessels had deployed to the surface to assist with evacuation and defense. The Krev force outnumbered them nearly 2-1. "The Krev adaptation is impressive," commented Captain Voss, pointing to sensor readings from the enemy vessels. "They've already modified their shields based on their encounter with your weapons." "Expected," Helena replied.